And I know the song that gets on everybody's nerves, and this is how it goes. Okay, I'm Suzanne Meyer with No Longer Quivering. I wrote for there for 9 years. I no longer write from there. I wrote on the Pathos platform, and before that, just so I want to talk about a book that I wrote a review for. I'm ready. I have my tequila just in case I need it because this is one of those books. This is a book that if I were doing a book review for NLQ, if I were doing another one of my Facebook reviews, I'm sorry, they've distracted me, those stupid birds. I would be doing this or having a shot every time they talked about squishy, crazy sexual stuff. Because if there's one thing I know about fundamentalism, is that they don't have a clue about sexuality. They don't know what is romantic, what's not romantic. They mistake romance and lust a lot of times, the men do. And if there is no clearer picture of that than this stupid book, Doug Wilson of Moscow, Idaho, who runs St. Andrew's College and his own little cult church there in Moscow, Idaho. How far to the right is he? He is so far to the right, he is seeing Narnia. He's in the closet, crazy fundamentalist, not in the closet sexually, but just in the closet, hiding in fear and fear-mongering everybody. If you want to laugh, if you needed to laugh for a day, go to his blog. Hey, Christoph fan. Hey, Small Town Jewel. Yeah, I can't do that. I did that when I reviewed Von Ullman's book. What was the name of that? What Are You Doing was the name of the book. And I had tequila shot every time squishy, weird sexuality came up. And there are a couple of chapters I ended up a little bit snozzled by the end of the reviews. I can't drink this anyway. You see, this is brown tequila. This is the darker stuff. If you have blood sugar problems, and I do, I have borderline, which I keep under control with one metformin a day. The clear stuff, if you drink a shot of clear tequila once a day, guess what? It does lower your blood sugar. My endocrinologist said they're not even sure why it lowers your blood sugar, but it does. So tequila is good for that. And tequila would be something that I would think I would want to drink with this one besides coffee in my Love After Lockup mug. Because I always say that this is the book that broke my brain. Of all the ones that I've done reviews of for NLQ, this is one of the baddies, like last week and his hideous book about the end of the world and all this other crap. This is a romance novel written by an out there super right-wing Christian pastor who wants the theonomy. He wants a country that is run by the church. He's a theonomist. There are a lot of them out there in various degrees. So there's that. So he broke my brain with this stupid thing. The main character is called Savannah Westmoreland, and I am seeing in my brain the cover of a bodice ripper. You know the kind of romance novels I'm talking about. The kind I used to read when I was in high school and I was stuck at my boyfriend's grandmother's house because I was sick and everybody else was at church. I read all of her Harlequin romance novels written by Princess Diana's step-grandmother? Can't even think of Barbara Cartland. So this is what I would expect from Barbara Cartland, not from a pastor. Something about his romance novels being written by a Christian pastor seems off by itself. Oh, listen on, Christoph, and you will see just how off this stupid thing is. So the Savannah Westmoreland is a school teacher, happens to be a school teacher in the same part of the world that Dougie here lives in. Same part of the world he lives in. Not a big secret that he is waxing romantic about his town And his area in the first, oh, I forgot how many pages. The first chapter is almost entirely a description of the place, with very little description of the players beyond Savannah, who's supposed to be imbued with every charm that a woman could. So he doesn't say when this takes place, but considering their references to the recent appearance of automobiles and things, I'm going to guess somewhere between 1900 to 1915, somewhere in the edge of the Victorian era before the start of everyone's favorite, the Roaring Twenties. And I've got some family tales to tell of the Roaring Twenties. Somewhere I have to scan in. I have photographs of my grandmother, the flapper. So anyway, this is his vanity project, I'm pretty sure. He spent the chapter talking about the beauty of the area of the world he lives in. I don't doubt that Moscow, Idaho is incredibly beautiful. From what I've seen about pictures of Idaho up there, it's real pretty. Now, he invented two love interests for Savannah, Alan Lambeth, a banker and an all-around Simon Legree, combined with Scrooge McDuck. Rich, stuck on himself, will do anything to get what he wants. Evil. We're supposed to know from the beginning that this guy's pure evil inside out. He never does anything unless there's some kind of benefit for him. And the other guy is a pastor, Thomas Goforth. Goforth. Westmoreland. These names. He's killing me with these names. A pastor with a silly name and a silly shame, which we'll get to in the very end of the book. It's a crazy book in a lot of ways. So that was all chapter 1. Chapter 2 brought us to the big thing, the big incident that the entire book revolves around, the potato salad throwing incident. They're at a church picnic, and Savannah is being chased by her two love interests. They're do-si-doing around her like the Bachelors were around Scarlett O'Hara in that picnic scene. Same sort of action going on. Or like dogs in heat. Now dogs around another dog in heat. It's that kind of action going on. It's ridiculous. Alan Lambeth keeps pushing his granny's potato salad, saying, "It's the best potato salad you could ever put in your mouth. Please taste it." He keeps going on and on and on and on while Thomas is at her side, and she snapped at him a bunch of times and said nasty things. This gal tends to snap and say snippy, snappy, nasty, sarcastic things all the time, which makes me wonder, how is everybody in town saying how perfect she is when she seems like Triumph the insult comic insult dog? She seems very similar. So Alan keeps pushing that potato salad. Finally, she takes a bowl. She waits for him to go so many feet away, and then she tosses it. She beans him right in the head with the potato salad. Knocks him right off knocks him on his ass. This is followed by her claims that she can't eat potato salad because she's allergic to potato salad. Now, Doug Wilson has spent a lot of time on his blog putting down people with food allergies and claiming that it's nonsense and it's all in your head and it doesn't really exist, it's made up. Yet he goes ahead and, very rude, very rude. Apparently she's rude. Rude is a Christian thing? I don't know. So was Jesus rude? Did Jesus ever beat anybody in the head with potato salad? I don't think so. And so he makes it a food allergy, even though he mocks food allergies in his blog and says they don't exist. He's made fun of people that don't want to be around peanuts. He's made fun of the whole gluten-free crowd, which I sometimes will make fun of them because you admit some people that are followers that don't have an original thought in their head will claim they need to be gluten-free when they actually have never been diagnosed with celiac or a true wheat allergy. They're just pulling this out of their rear end as a trendy way to do whatever. So I tend to make fun of those people too. That's the only thing that I can, is I make fun of the trendoids, not the ones that actually need to be gluten-free. So they spend the rest of the picnic circling that gal like dogs after a bitchin' heat. And this whole book is an indictment of everything that is wrong with the church in my eyes. There's envy, there's lust, there's wrath, there's tattletaling, there's gossip, there's lying, there's rudeness. And those are from some of the ones that are supposed to be Christians. It's kind of a demented version of Verhoeven's Showgirls in a lot of ways. Every choice that can be made wrong is made wrong, when you could have maybe redeemed this thing, even if it was a little bit, considers itself a romance novel. Okay. And then we go on to more pork swords at dawn. There's more ridiculous, more penile one-upmanship that goes on throughout the book. Yeah, I laughed so hard over the potato salad fling, and that was the best part of the book. It was like, why don't you beat them both in the head with a potato salad and run off with a lumberjack or something? Leave these fools alone, the pastor and the billionaire, the banker. So Savannah spends a lot of time griping and complaining, while others are calling her perfect, wonderful, sweet. I don't get it. So the men start arguing with her in a swanky hotel during a town function. The next couple of chapters were just descriptions of them going to various town functions at the swankiest hotels and stuff and representing their town. And the two men, yet again, wrestling over her almost, trying to gain her love by competing. She runs into a traveling salesman who recognizes her from Milwaukee. And the traveling salesman tells her dirty secret is safe with him. Then Alan gets him drunk and apparently weasels the dirty little secret out of him, or at least parts of it. And then Alan tries to win her love, Alan the banker, by burning down the boarding house she's living in. Burns it down. I didn't know that you could burn down somebody's house. That's considered a romantic gesture. So he burns this down because he wants to rush in and save her and be the hero to everyone, including her. My hero, here's my heart. No, that doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work well for him either, because Pastor Goforth is up late writing a sermon, going through his sermon notes and reading his Bible. And he sees the flames and he rushes in and he rescues her and wins her heart and puts out the flames. And Alan has set up the traveling salesman to be suspected of the fire by putting his hat there at the fire and telling the local sheriff, I saw this traveling salesman there lurking around the house who said he knew her and her bad secret. So there's that. And then the next chapter is the dumbest one of the whole thing. It is literally Savannah lusting after Pastor Goforth, having dirty thoughts while making pancakes. Lust and pancakes. She's flipping the flapjacks and she's thinking about what that would be like. And I just skipped right over that. And if I had been still a drinking gal, which I'm not because of my medications I'm on, I would have downed this whole damn bottle when I got to that chapter, because it's all it was all about her lusting over him and some mild flirting and her lusting through the wall because he's sitting in the dining room not knowing she's thinking those dirty, dirty thoughts about him. Now notice, Doug does not have any idea how the emotions of women run. He has them being cranky, McCranky, or non-existent plot devices. Now he has her feeling this crazy lust. Not romance, not love, but lust. And there's nothing wrong with lust. Lust has its place. Sometimes it has its place in romance novels too, but not this one written by a pastor. This is just crazy. So Alan decides that after all his lusting that's reaping no rewards, that he's going to date someone else to make Savannah jealous. And he does. He dates one of her rivals, doesn't make Savannah jealous. She tries to talk to the woman, and a cat fight ensues. It's just really just like the basest emotions of everyone and the few emotions that women are allowed to have: jealousy, anger, lust. There's more saber and pork sword rattling over all of this, over Savannah. All kinds of plot devices running into each other here and there. Alan plots and kills a pile of town folks. Then he twirls his mustache. All in the pursuit of Savannah and winning Savannah's hand and, and undoing her underwear. And then he has to skedaddle out of town ahead of the long arm of the law and lay low because he's killed these people. He's tried to make it look like others have killed him, killed these. Don't pastors try to preach against lust? Maybe in churches I grew up in. Usually they do. That's what's so funny about this, and how that's one of the only emotions people are allowed to have is lust. Now, Savannah goes out to the woods to pray because what else is a girl to do? She's praying alone out there, and she's been pushing the pastor off, and she's been pushing the other guy off, Alan, by saying that she's not worthy, she's not ready. All these I'm not interested. She's given out I am not interested signals to the nth degree right up until she started having the hots for getting the pastor's pants off. So she starts praying. Pastor goes forth after her and finds her praying in the woods, and he proposes to her. He proposes marriage. That was sudden. I mean, I doubt it. It was supposed to be around the turn of the century, around the 1900s, 1910s. So I doubt it was based on a real story. I think this is just his fervent imagination working. Maybe this is his way of having sexual thoughts without actually having what he considers bad sexual thoughts. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. So Savannah goes into this recitation of why she can't marry him. It's a standard boilerplate life story. Very standard, straight out of a romance novel. Parents dead at a young age, raised by this person, blah, blah, blah. Going here, going there, taking a steamboat, running into this madam. And then she announces she tried her hand at, hold on to your tequila. She tried her hand at sex work. Sex work! No, like I've said before, I don't have anything against that. If the girls are protected, if they aren't forced into that, if they're protected by the law, like they're regularly tested, there's somebody making sure nobody beats up on them, they get to keep their wages. But since that's not how it happens for most of the time, in fact, last night, I actually went in and was looking at my History Channel, things that I love, my History Channel YouTubers, and I ran across one that talked about what it was like, the famous madams, what it was like to be a madam and work in one of the brothels in the West in that very time frame. So it was very illuminating. Some of the madams paid the girls nothing. They said, you're earning your room, your board, your fancy clothes, because a lot of them did dress their girls way fancier and in the newest styles than the average Joe. And some paid them a minimal amount. Some of them hold on to the money for them if they did pay them, so that they would have some kind of funds to start a life at some point in the future. So it's pretty interesting. A girl would do that in those days only if she didn't really have any other good options. And obviously in those days, nobody was protected, except that madams were pretty much well respected, and then they were pretty tough. I saw a lot of those in that, and he had pictures and stories of their lives. It was pretty interesting. So anyway, back to Savannah. I keep wanting to call her Samantha. Savannah, working as a sex worker. She met a madam on a steamboat and decided she wanted to try her hand at it in Milwaukee. She did it just the one time because she was curious and she was horny. That's literally what it says. Now she's a soiled dove, she says, not fit for any decent man whatsoever, doomed to live a life on the edges of society as a bitterly frustrated school marm who can't be having sex with anybody and not fit to marry. So that's her big secret. The whole book is built around her protecting her secret. The traveling salesman saw her and said, yeah, I'll keep her secret. Alan tried to get the secret, only got parts of it. He didn't know she was actually working as a prostitute that one time. So there was that. So does Pastor go forth, let go of her hand and go forth and say, ooh, no, this is where his secret comes out. And it's a stupid one. Like I said, silly name, silly secret. He tells her she's obligated to marry him now because he was the customer that slept with her that one time. And that was the only time he ever went to a prostitute. He was temporarily sinning. He had been studying to be a pastor. He started having doubts and got off the rails one night with alcohol and ended up there. He banged Savannah. Who thinks that stuff up? I gotta wonder about the brain of the pastor who thinks like that. So he says, because it was the one and only time he had ever been with her or anybody else, the one and only time she had only been with a man, that meant they had to marry now to make everything right in the eyes of the Lord. So she tearfully accepts this proposal, all the while ranting about how guilty she felt, how much guilt she carried around. Guilt, guilt, guilt. He said he had guilt, but his guilt was like said, yeah, I know what you mean. You could tell by the oodles of the way these characters are written, women only are blamed for these things. And they're the only ones that have to pay the guilt price. Everybody else is like, yeah, I feel guilty. Right. But you don't act like you're guilty. You act like you're not guilty in any way. So there's more love talk before Alan shows up on the run because the law's figured out he's been offing all these people. And the men fight again over Savannah. Again. And Alan is hauled away by the popo to the pokey, and we're out. Thank you, Jesus. I did not turn into an alcoholic because of this dumb book that I had to write a review of. I wrote this a couple of years ago, so I had to go back in and refresh my memory last night. For the life of me, I can't figure out why a pastor of a very conservative church would write a romance novel, particularly one with so many people that were so poorly behaved. So many of the people that were supposed to be praiseworthy and emulated aren't. They're just vile people. Like I said, you've got every kind of bad behavior that happens in churches going on. And it's like he's not even aware that he's done that he's made the church look beyond unattractive to anybody with half a brain. It's just nonsense. That fevered imaginations of a sexually frustrated pastor, I'm guessing, if I had to guess. And that's just my opinion, allegedly. I'm allegedly saying that this stuff is true. I don't know. That's how I'm feeling. So at least it makes some kind of sense, and there's a flow of narrative, unlike the week before when I reviewed Ride, Sally, Ride, that is one of the craziest books I've ever seen. It's way crazier than this one was, and that's saying something. And the craziness of it is that none of it, you can look at things and see that he doesn't know anything about what happens in a courtroom. He knows nothing about the military. He knows little about how government's run. He knows not even that much about the Mennonites. So you can see that he lacks in all these different directions and he's making stuff up again. This is a little harder to say that, except to say he goes with caricatures of people and not real people. Their thought lives are not examined except as how they're lusting after these various people. That's about the only time their thought lives are ever examined, except that some Vanna is constantly torturing herself with her guilt throughout the book, and you're like, girl. So there's that. I guess lust in females, according to Doug, can blow up buildings and wreck civilizations unless it is sublimated into the marriage bed, which is another big, huge lie. That is not true at all. So, yeah, this one was crazy, but that one was crazier. And the one that I'm going to do next week, and here I'm going to try to do videos next week. I can't promise that I am. I'm flying on Wednesday to DC. Okay. I'm staying with my daughter again. She doesn't have great Wi-Fi. But I'm going to try it again. I'm going to see. I just got my new computer back. I'm going to use that again eventually. And I'm going to try. I'm going to try and see what happens. Because the next book is really crazy. Let me pull the title up. I'm going to have to reread this over the next week and write notes, because when I read it, I could not make heads or tails. It was another one of those bad books that I was shocked by. It was a book written by Debbie Pearl called Because it was pilloried. It was awful. It's an awful book. It's full of Muslimophobia. She paints all Muslims, all Arabs as terrorists. I've got to look. This may have been published after 9/11, but I know that a lot of Christians I knew in that sort of religion felt that way at the time about Arabs altogether and immigrants. So there's a lot of immigrant bashing in this book, a lot of it. And it talks about a Christian ministry that is publishing books of truth. And they're making some kind of miraculous oil to heal everybody with all these berries and crap. It heals everything, brings people back from the dead, waxes your kitchen floor and shines your automobile. It does everything. So they're getting ready for this super volcano under Yellowstone to erupt. So they're plotting for the end of the world. They're canning all this berry oil, and they're Muslim bashing. And Al-Qaeda sends operatives to their compound, and it just goes stupid from there. Small Tail Jewel, I'm going to have luck with the flights because I'm flying Delta. I have much greater luck with Delta than the other carriers. I've flown American, I've flown United, I've flown other carriers. I only have luck with Delta, even though Delta once or twice has dropped the ball on having the wheelchair waiting, but they've quickly rectified that when I said, hey, where's my wheelchair? Just because I have a hard time walking on that slick surface with my cane. I just can't do it for more than a gate or two. So there's that. And the last time I went through the Atlanta airport, I'm glad I was in a wheelchair because the gate was buku far away. It wasn't even slightly far away. It was like, I don't know if it was in the same zip code even. It was that far. So I'm hoping that Delta does not drop the ball. I double checked all my disability accommodations with them. I made sure they know that I can't have peanuts around me and that I need the wheelchair. Those are my two big ones. And yes, Small Town Jewel, I am bringing my blanket. I'm not bringing my one that I sit there. It used to be my old blanket. And I've always said that if you're traveling, the best $2.50 that you can spend is on one of those Walmart fleece blankets. It really is. But I've had that one so much and done so many things with it, washed it so many times, there's not much fleece left. So when I was freezing that time, I bought one in the airport. It was quite costly, but it was a pretty serious upgrade from that. So I'm not too upset. So I'm packing everything. I'm packing my snacks. I'm packing my blanket. I'm packing the sweater I'm working on. And you see this girl, she disappeared for 24 hours and I was freaking out. So I'm glad to have her back on the bed, grooming herself at my elbow again. So there's that. And I have a house sitter. We're ready to go. I've done everything. Tomorrow morning we go get our COVID tests again. It's the reality of international travel. So there's that. I had to tell the Costa Rican government I was leaving and that I was having the test and that I've already been vaccinated. I had to do all that. I did that. So here we go. We'll see. Coming back this time, they're dropping one of the requirements. So if you're coming to Costa Rica and you have been vaccinated, you no longer have to buy additional travel insurance from Trawick or from INS or from, I can't even think of it, Sagacor, the other insurance company here. You no longer have to buy special travel insurance, and that's good because that stuff had gotten expensive. The first time I bought it was $80. The second time I bought it had gone up to like $800 for the same coverage. And so they finally figured out that they were going to charge the same thing that INS and Sagacor was charging tourists coming here. So that's another reason to be vaccinated. If you want to come to Costa Rica, you could avoid that. You can avoid that expensive thing just by having your, I can't see it through here. That's his, this is mine. Just by having this, your vaccination card. You have this, you don't have to buy the insurance because you're vaccinated. And I'm just as glad. I don't want to pay. I don't want to enrich somebody. Health insurance that works here. So I wouldn't even use the health insurance end of it. Walk on Jewel, it did. That's one reason why I was late. I was outside looking for her, calling for her, trying to find her. She disappears for an hour or two every day. And I see her out there walking around and doing whatever. But she doesn't disappear for that long. I finally figured out late last night that the cat door was locked. I don't even know how that happened, but it was locked. Nobody was coming in. I noticed that Scabby was coming to the front door and begging to come in. He was standing there looking at me with sad eyes saying, please let me in, and meowing. I had to let the cats in and out the front door. And it's like, why are they not using the cat door? So when I finally figured out the cat door had been locked probably 8 or 9 hours at that point. So I unlocked it late last night thinking she'd be in. Nope. So I had to go looking for her, and with my bowl of cereal in hand, it took a lot longer than I thought it was. I came back and I saw it was late, and I was like, oh my God. So there's that. What we won't do for our kitties, for our little fur babies. I don't know. I am eager to go to this visit because one of my daughters is visiting the other one, and she brought all 5 of her fur babies with her. And I can't wait to pet Karen. She's got a cat she called Karen that's a Siamese. It's gorgeous. She's perfectly fine. She just, I guess she got kind of freaked out when the cat door closed. And every time she tried to come in, my husband was telling me last night when he was up and I wasn't, he kept blocking her at the door and beating her. And I did not know that had gone on until I got up this morning and said, hey, where's Pork at? Where's Porky? So there's that. Now I have to laugh because my hit numbers go down when I don't talk about without a box of Kleenex. But you know something? That's okay. I'm not doing this for hit numbers and for, I'm out of Kleenex. I'm the one without a box of Kleenex now, not her. So I got to go get another one. I'll put this here to remind myself because I am scatterbrained once I start taking my medicine, which hasn't happened yet. So anyway, what I wanted to say is numbers, no numbers, whatever. I'm going to keep on going. I'm probably not going to talk about her much, and I'm just as well happy to do so because I'm kind of sick of it. If you look at Twitter, there's a lot of just craziness going on. There are a lot of people that are just obsessing over every little thing. I get that. I've been there, done that, gotten the tattoo. But like I said, I don't quite understand why everybody is quite as angry at her as they could be. I'm angry at her because she actually did physically harm me when she got me to do all those getting ready and then stood me up. I was sick for days after that. And I don't know what's going on with her attorney. I don't have a clue. I know she paid over $100 for Duggar documents, which made me laugh because later the same documents came out for free, which they usually do. I usually sit and wait so I can make those discussions. I still think either later today or tomorrow I'm going to do a discussion on the Ginger Duggar getting baptized, John MacArthur, and the whole thing, because her and others have the wrong end of the stick. John MacArthur is not a strict Calvinist. He's just not. I know that because my old church was part of the Grace Presbytery. We were all linked. I knew what he believed in. My pastor went to his college once a month or so. He was working on his PhD. And there was a lot of overlap. A lot of overlap. And while he has behaved abysmally throughout the pandemic, he's not what he's being painted as by Without a Box of Kleenex and a few others. He's just not. I'm not saying he's not awful, because he has his awfulness. He's got that whole evangelical, I'm better than everybody else thing going on that was going on at my home church. It was going on at so many places that I went to. You know, a lot of times, especially in evangelical or fundamentalist religions, when people grasp a hold of this little thing they believe in, they make it the be all and end all and say that anybody not towing the line exactly like they're saying is going to HE double hockey sticks. Instead of being tolerant and saying, well, what's nice if that's what you believe? And you don't have to, if you believe something, you don't have to fight with everybody else that doesn't believe the same way exactly. You just don't. It's really not your job. It's your job to be the best person you can be, regardless of what moniker you wrap yourself in. I have to say, I know more people who profess to not believe that are decent people than I do people from my old religion, my old high demand religious circle, that behave with more morality, more kindness, more compassion than those people. And that's really sad, because I think if you read the words of Jesus, we're really called to do that kind of work. We're called to be salt and light, not salty and lightning bolts. So I don't know. I've just been thinking about it a whole lot, particularly after having left my other church. Was supposedly not like that, turned out to be exactly like that in so many ways. When I developed my asthma problems there because of somebody's emotional support dog, and they were not willing to stand with me, that became a major thing for me. You protect your people, you protect others, or you suck, as far as I'm concerned. I did say I wanted to talk about another book, and I do. I want to talk about some better alternatives to the book I just read. I mean, to the book I was just talking about, The Man in the Dark. Okay. So I want to talk about, just a little bit before I go, about Island in the Storm, A Rising Sea, a vanished coast in a 19th century disaster that warns of a warmer world, by Abby Salinger. Now, this may not be a book that interests you, but after seeing everybody going through Ida and thinking about hurricanes and how hurricanes are getting worse, you would think that, small town Jill, but that didn't happen. It didn't happen. This book, I read it. It was a rather difficult read at first. I started reading and thinking, I'm not going to like this, but I love my historical books, and that's what this was. This examined the role of hurricanes in the past and now, even past Katrina, for Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, the Gulf Coast there. And it talked about They started talking about it in the context of the hurricane. This is before they named hurricanes, but they named this one Hurricane Isle Dinero. My Spanish, French is way off. So Dinero. Okay, that was it. Isle Dinero, Hurricane Isle Dinero. Isle Dinero, last island, was this island off the coast of Louisiana with Grand Isle and all of those, but it was the last one, the farthest one out. And in the early to almost mid 1800s is where the wealthy planters would build beach houses. It was this huge island with nothing but row after row after row of millionaires' houses. What happened was August I think it was, let's see, I hate to say what year because I don't remember exactly which year that was. It was in mid. The planters who were there, and the whole island was crowded, their servants, their friends. A huge hurricane came up. They all ignored the warning signs, and there were warning signs. And the hurricane overran the island to the depth of about 8 feet. It swept away every single building, including the fancy hotel, including the boat wharf, everything. It just took it out completely, and it drowned several hundred people, I believe. And then doesn't stop there, it gets worse. The people who were alive afterwards, maybe about 150 people, were in the bottom of this wrecked boat. That's where they had taken shelter. And while they were waiting for rescue that wasn't coming, because no one in New Orleans knew this had happened, because this was in the days before wireless telegraphs. Nobody knew that this had happened. New Orleans had had a very mild version of the storm, and it had taken out the entire isle. He'd taken out the entire island. So while they're waiting and praying without food, without fresh water, in the bottom of this boat, pirates came along. The remnants of Jean Lafitte and those guys came along and started robbing the corpses, started taking jewelry off, even if they had to cut a body part off to get it, and started collecting the cash off of people, and people did have cash. And it took some time. It took like 3 or 4 days before anybody in New Orleans realized something was wrong and went after those people. Not only that, there were a number of ships at sea that were crashed, that were trying to navigate the passageway into the Mississippi River, which is not easy in the best of circumstances. There's sandbars, there's all kinds of problems. So they had dropped anchor at the mouth and prayed for the best, and the ships are wrecked. One of the ships contained giant casks of very fine French brandy and wine. And when that ship went to pieces, the casks were everywhere. And for years afterwards, the casks, and I'm not drunk, I swear I'm not. I swear I haven't touched this, kept rolling ashore. They kept rolling ashore, some in the pirate coves, some in the plantation fronts, I don't know, different things. And for many years afterwards, they kept finding these wines and these brandies. It had quite a bad impact. Millions of dollars in property was destroyed just on this one little island, and so many people died. If you go to Metairie Cemetery or you go to St. Louis 1 or 2, you can find a number of people buried there that were lost in that hurricane. And the book talks about the role of science in global warming and the nature of islands, the nature of sandbars in the Mississippi, how we've screwed up the entire wetland system in the Mississippi that once upon a time protected against hurricanes. It's kind of a gloom and doom, but it's also interesting. I learned a whole lot that I did not know as a resident of Louisiana, that was not taught in Louisiana history. So there was that. And I learned a lot about hurricanes in the Gulf and how they've always reacted, and all the millions of dollars, tens of billions of damage they've done through the years. Beginning to wonder why anybody lives in South Louisiana, particularly after hearing the tales from my relatives. They're like, oh, we'll just rebuild, we'll go back. I only had one that skedaddled away. Everybody else is like, yeah, we're just going to rebuild, we're going to do this, we'll do that. I'm like, Yeah, I left Louisiana 35 years ago, maybe longer than that even. I think it was longer than that. 1986, which would be 34 years ago. That's when I left Louisiana. So I'm never going back to live there. Mosquitoes the size of jumbo jets and hurricanes are enough to keep me away. Now, there are a hardy breed of people that love that stuff and stay there. I love to visit. I love the food. I love my people. I love how they can turn a hardship into a benefit and they can overcome the stubbornness of the Cajun people. But I don't want to have to go through that. So there's that. There is that. I love the history there. And now that I know the history of this, I'm going to go look for the monuments to the dead there and do some more poking around in the history because I love history. It's always been my thing. So read something good that uplifts you or teaches you something. But don't waste your money on Doug Wilson's romance, The Man in the Dark, because it really isn't worth the paper it's written on. It reads like a silly Harlequin romance, really. Oh, the characters are so one-dimensional that you just have a real hard time figuring out who's doing what and why and what their motivation is. It's not clearly explained in places. So they're better books to read. Okay, I've quit rambling. I'm going to go on. It's 47 minutes of me running my mouth with this instead of that. I wish I could have this. Oh, I wish I could have this. I love tequila shots. They don't love me anymore. They make my blood pressure go up. And that's a no. Those are a no-no now, as much as they're fun as they can be for everyone. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Like I said, next week, it's going to be The Vision by Debbie Pearl. Debbie Pearl's one and only fictional novel of a possibly dystopian future in America. I don't know where Debbie's brain is going. And she should try writing. I'm sure there's a huge market for this. Unfortunately, it's not her followers. Her followers are not the market for this book because they wholesale rejected it. Okay. Love you guys. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your afternoons. I'm going to be in here with, or in my sewing room with, I'll show you, these on because it's football season. I am not a football fan. My husband is a giant, enormous football fan and fantasy football fan. And every year I always laugh and say, I am the fantasy football widow. So yet again, I am. Okay. See you later.